So it's my privilege to begin our program today, and in particular, it's my privilege to introduce you to Jim McNerney. Jim is the chairman and CEO of Boeing Corporation, and he is in the United States as close to corporate royalty as we have. He is a graduate of Yale University, was on the Yale baseball team there, went to Harvard Business School, went to General Electric, and there he was discovered by the CEO named Jack Welch, who's probably the most celebrated CEO in the world, at least at that time. And then he was pirated away to be the CEO of 3M, and then pirated again to come over to the Boeing Corporation, which he joined in 2005. What's Boeing? Everyone knows Boeing. Boeing is the largest manufacturer of both commercial and defense planes and the largest supplier of defense and space products in the world. They have 169,000 employees. I want to pause over Boeing for one moment. The Atlantic works for a couple of hundred clients all around the world. We do not have a client who says the following statement: I want to not only sell product into a market, I want to see how I can make a contribution, intellectual contribution to the market, to run much deeper into the thoughts and the ideas and the success of the region. And it was their concept to see if we couldn't do something like this in Abu Dhabi. So Jim is going to come up and he's going to be interviewed by Mohammed Al Otaiba. Mohammed is the editor-in-chief of the National, which is the English language paper throughout the region. So let me welcome you all, and let me welcome Mohammed and Jim.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
David, firstly, thank you for sharing that Harvard report with us. And I think, Jim, how happy are you?
I'm very happy to be here, and I am very happy to have received such a gracious introduction by David.
Good, good. So, Jim, I came across a study on the Washington Post a couple of days ago, and it said that women in the U.S. are, there are 20%, less than 20% of women in the Senate and in Congress. Mm. What does that tell you about the role of women in U.S. politics?
Well, I think within that narrow context, the number is right. 20% is progress, but not enough progress. I think when I have that discussion, it is often within the context of a corporation. How many female engineers do we have? How many women are on honest-to-God, real succession plans for top management? And I'm pleased to say that our numbers are a little better than the 20%, but it is the society that we're in, and we're making good progress, and there's more to go.
I mean, the aerospace industry is male-dominated. So how do you encourage women? How do you empower them to join this industry?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think the history of aerospace and defense is sort of it has a very macho culture at the very beginning. Back when a lot of these machines and systems were first invented, they were often used in wartime. And so it's been more of a challenge for our industry than some others. But there is no easy way to do it except focus on it and reward behavior that is inclusive and constructive and that brings minorities along, minority populations, including women,
yes,
and discourage behavior that doesn't produce that. How do you discourage behavior? It's about pay, it's about promotion, it's about real things. So there has to be an edge to the program, and on top of that, everybody has to earn their jobs. So it's you're given the opportunity, and we're very proud of the female representative at the top of our company. So and it's going to keep getting better.
So maybe one day we can see a female chairman CEO.
Very easily,
yeah.
Very easily.
Yeah. So there are a number of initiatives. Well, firstly, we are in Abu Dhabi.
Thank you.
And I don't think it's your first time here.
Even the hotel rooms look different when you wake up here.
When you wake
so
up.
I can tell I'm here.
What do you see?
Well, I was texting my wife last night, and she and I lived in Hong Kong and China back about 25 years ago, and I said, I know where all the cranes have moved to, okay? They moved from Shanghai and Hong Kong and Beijing to right here, okay? 'Cause I'm describing looking out my window. And no, you just see enormous physical development, obviously. But what I'm most impressed with, to be honest with you, is the focus on people. A lot of countries focus on infrastructure, and that in and of itself is necessary but not sufficient. And the focus on people, their development, and we're fortunate to be tied into a number of programs here, whether it's engineering internships or mentoring, or in the community encouraging young people to pursue business or technical paths, and the government's focus on it. You know, we're finding we're being pushed, we're being challenged, and so I think in the long run, it's the people development that makes the difference. So in the case of young, aspiring, talented people here, it's about accelerating experiences. Young people get experiences very quickly. It's about, as David implied in his comments, learning from the inevitable failures. When you fail young, it's sometimes harder than when you fail a little later, when you got a little more perspective in life, you have a family supporting you, you have a certain amount of self-confidence. When you fail early, it can shake you. So dealing with these failures constructively, and we had an interesting dinner on innovation last night that you were participating in, and the best entrepreneurs have generally failed 2 or 3 times, and treated it as a learning experience and moved on. So the physical infrastructure, I'll stop talking. The physical infrastructure, incredibly impressive. The airlines, I mean, I'm particularly 15% of the P&L in the Emirates is related to air travel, commercial air travel. It's a huge, huge number. And but the people focus, I think, is the longest lasting and the most important.
Probably these sort of big investments in the UAE are, the purpose behind them is sort of to leapfrog the economy into a new paradigm.
Yeah.
To either catch up with the times or to be an active player in world or global economics.
Yeah. Well, it is an incredible act of energy and vision, to be honest with you. I mean, I think as I travel around the world and work with a lot of governments and customers and partners, I don't see that kind of discontinuous thinking everywhere. This is discontinuous thinking. You see more incremental thinking, but you have the resources to do it. You have the people who have the energy, the youth, to not know what you don't know, and so here we go. Now there will be bumps in the road, okay, but it totally energizes the population. These big goals. I mean, I run big organizations, and I know incrementalism is not very exciting. You know, you can't get people to wake up in the morning and charge into the office against a 3% improvement over last year, okay? But doubling the amount of 777s we're going to sell around the world, people can get their minds around that, or creating a new-to-the-world kind of satellite system, or, you know, you've got to have big goals for people, and because it draws energy out of them and gets results you wouldn't otherwise have, even if you fall a little bit short of the big goal. So I highly appreciate what's going on here, just as someone who understands the management challenge of getting everybody galvanized.
Yes, yes. So Boeing is in the UAE. It's in the region, but if we look into the UAE, there are a number of initiatives which Boeing has partnered on in, especially Abu Dhabi, in education, in manufacturing,
Yep.
biofuel research. So why is Abu Dhabi important to Boeing?
Well, I think for two reasons. I mean, it would be disingenuous of me to say it's not a big market here. It is a big market here. But on the other hand, I was just commenting to some of our folks, using the example of biofuels, I am finding incredible commitment and energy and resource commitment to biofuels. We have biofuel joint ventures in many places around the world.
Yes.
Everybody wants to get into biofuels in one form or another. But I must say, what I see here in our joint activity with
Yes.
Masdar
Yes.
is incredible. We're already scaling up, not only scaling up, but within the ecosystem that supports the organism. And we've already had a major test flight, Etihad. And my prediction is that we will be using a greater percentage of biofuels in Boeing technology here than anywhere in the world. Now, that prediction could turn out to be wrong, but that's one of the reasons we do all of these things. And you mentioned the manufacturing. We work with Strata. We have major Tier 1 components for the Dreamliner being done here, the new 777X being done here. People are hungry to learn. They absorb our partnership, and they produce results. So it's what's not to like about the cooperation we're finding here.
I mean, not too many organizations perhaps can take that risk, and Boeing has the economies of scale to go out and invest, put money in investment, research and development, and I suppose spreading or mitigating risks across different initiatives globally.
Yes, I mean, I think there's both diversity because we have a big global footprint. We can find the best places to do things. We're very excited about doing things here. But there is an element of risk mitigation because we have places where we can have some redundancy if things go wrong and try to keep it all together. But the major theme is we can't do it all ourselves. Yeah, I think David mentioned we have 175,000 employees,
Yes.
and we depend on another 1.5 million employees. So 10 times the number of Boeing badged employees we depend on to work with us to produce technology, major components. And so we have to manage that ecosystem.
Yes.
And as you point out, it's a big management challenge. But we can't exist at the size we are without global partnerships, without finding the best people with the most energy and the most resources to partner with us. What we bring them is global access. I mean, we are the largest player in our industry, and if we can work together, it is instant growth for somebody. So we bring growth and overarching innovation. We depend on local innovation to support it for people who have global ambitions with us. And so it's a good combination, and I think it's working very well here, to be honest.
So all parties benefit from this partnership.
Yes, totally.
I mean, Boeing is a profit-making company, so there are, of course, self-serving intentions, perhaps, in partnerships, but everybody reaps the benefits.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly the concept. And the facts are, with this network of partnerships, we do things at lower cost and more efficiently. So we all make more profit.
All right. So we talk about taking risks and the importance of failure for the sake of an innovation and progress. Could you give me an example where you have gambled an idea and tell us how it came out? Maybe an example where it was a success, and what is success in your view, and one that was a failure?
I think, maybe the best way to approach it is to use one major program that had both elements, and that would be the 787 Dreamliner. Which was the short story of the 87 is we built the right airplane for the market requirement. The bad news is our execution was not good at the beginning. Well, we didn't manage global partnerships well. We had this global network, and we didn't always understand the capabilities of our partners as much as we should. We implemented technologies that were too quick to the marketplace, that hadn't fully matured yet. So we had this groundbreaking airplane that depended on a lot of new innovation, and a few points of innovation were not yet mature. So it took us longer to get the plane done, and there was some rough sledding there, and it ended up costing us a lot more money than we had anticipated, and it was difficult for many people in our organization and our customers, and so we went through some dark times, but having gotten through that,
Yes.
having stuck with it,
Yes.
having believed that the overall innovation was the right thing, it turns out we were right, and it's the best-selling wide body of all time. But it's, I was mentioning last night that some of the people in our organization that are moving toward the top, the next generation, have all experienced major failures in their careers. And they're very important experiences to have. They've worked on programs that either didn't make it, or they worked on programs that did make it, but then failed in execution. And we're managing so much risk that having that experience is very, very important. So it's and I know you meant it by the way you asked the question. It's not either a success or a failure. The fact is there's a marriage between the two. And that's what I love about the youth here, is they will experience failures a little earlier. They'll learn faster. And that's very valuable.
I mean,
learning.
they could make big mistakes that are costly.
They could, and you're right, and the mistakes could be bigger at a younger age.
Yeah.
I get that.
We haven't got a repository of experiences and knowledge that perhaps in this case Boeing carries with it, that heritage. You will turn 100 in 2016.
Yes, we will, and we're going to go for another century after that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the 787 is one of your most innovative products. Looking at profitability, are there concerns there?
Well, as I mentioned, it took longer to develop.
Yes.
Than we thought, and time is money in our game.
Yes.
You have a standing army of engineers that are paid even as it takes longer to get done. And so the profitability, the program is profitable, but I think it's fair to say we're not as profitable as we'd hoped to be at this stage. But we're gaining ground every day.
One of your more successful models is, of course, the 737.
Yes.
It's been out there for a long time, and it's quite popular across the world. Are we expecting a replacement?
You mean?
And in what shape?
Yeah. Well, I think the way to answer that question is right now we have a new airplane out there, the MAX, which is largely a renovation rather than a fundamental innovation of the existing plane, and with new engines and some new materials. But and my guess is that will carry us through at least the middle of the next decade. So I think sometime before 2030. Oh, yeah. And in our world, that's a short period of time. Okay.
Yes.
We'll have an all-new airplane. I think the way it'll look, an all-new narrow-body airplane. I think there's a good chance it will be a composite airplane. It's a good chance that it'll be slightly bigger than the
So
737.
learning from, for example, the 787
Yes,
model.
yeah.
and
Well, the
applying-
777X,
Yes.
which is the new 777 we're introducing, is already spiraling in a lot of the composite technology from the 787. And then this would be a further spiraling in of that fundamental innovation into our narrow bodies. There'd be new engines that would have more ceramics rather than metal in the engines. It's hard for most people out in the audience to believe that a form of plastic will be also into the engines, it's because it's lighter and can handle more heat. Get better combustion, lighter, and the plane will be sort of a bit of a. I was mentioning last night, the seats will be like you'll be in a video arcade. I mean, these will be flying video arcades at that stage. Just the connectivity, the bandwidth you can get onto the plane, the way you can manipulate data and video online, real time. I mean, that'll become more a basis of competition too, as well as just the structure and performance of the airplane.
So the conventional shape or look of current airplanes won't change.
Won't
anytime
change
soon.
dramatically. Won't change. You can do some different shaping with the composites,
Yes.
but it'll be fundamentally you can get a little more room inside without. I don't want to go into the technology, but it will not change. Not change dramatically. Still have two engines on it, in all likelihood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are at the helm of the largest aerospace company in the world with, as we said, almost 170,000 employees. We're talking about innovation. How do you encourage, how do you drive innovation in such a large organization? It's still at and Boeing uses cutting edge technology, invests in research and development. But is there concern of bureaucracy or other impediments to innovation, and again, to that next 100 years of Boeing?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's one that I spend a lot of time thinking about, because the bigger you get, the more bureaucratic you get. And so what you have to create is a culture, or you have to hold on to a culture where more ideas are coming up from the bottom of the organization than you can possibly manage. You want the flow of ideas not to slow down, but to increase. Now, top down, that means you have to say no more often. And why do you say no? You do it on the basis of risk, business analysis, judgment. So if you keep saying no, how do you keep encouraging the flow? Yes. And so that's the challenge. And so you have to make no a good thing. All right, so you've got an idea. I tell you, all ideas are not created equal. We're choosing that person's idea, not your idea, and I've got to make that a positive experience for you. And what I've got to do is redeploy you very quickly onto something else. I've got to get you moving into some place and so we have very aggressive people policies that move particularly our engineering talent around. When things stop, get them on to where things start. And so it's that dynamic is my objective. Doesn't always work, but that's what we have to do to keep it going. Make no a positive, because it gets you onto something where you can succeed and benefit from the fact you didn't make it with your original idea. What did you learn from that? What did we learn from that? Let's get on to something new, apply that learning to a new challenge. Yes. And give people credit for that. Don't too negatively hurt them in terms of how you assess their performance. If they do it 3 or 4 times in a row, they may be in the wrong job, but the first time or two, it's treated as a positive experience, and that's what we strive to do.
I suppose people look up to leadership. They see them as examples and leaders in innovation. But perhaps seniors and management might not be equal in the sense of being best at leading the workforce. We were talking about an aging population or an aging workforce. There's that concern of complacency or just really resistance to innovation. So there's wanting to say no to ideas that are based on, justified, based on reasons there. But when it's just no because there is nothing else they can sort of give.
Yeah, that's that's when companies begin to die, okay, and countries for that matter. I think both ideas and people need to flow through organizations. Bureaucracy is most often created by success. Success is always the seed of failure, particularly a bureaucratic environment. Self-satisfaction, contentment. You mentioned an organization becoming very top-heavy. That's often a sign of not rewarding performance in the organization, not giving the people that have proven they can do it the next big promotion. You're holding on to all your friends. You can't let that happen. And it's hard work. You have to treat people right. But the flow of people and ideas, the winning flow is bottom up, managed top down as businesses required. But you want the energy to come from underneath in any company.
So back to innovation. A lot of it, and there's a lot of technological advances occur on the defense side of your business. When you lose a competition, like the Joint Strike Fighter, where does the technology go?
Well, the technology, Joint Strike Fighter is a very good example because both, to make my earlier point, the people who are leading that program, even though they lost a major effort, these people are now leading the company, okay? So they learned from their failure and brought forth a new personal leadership capability into new other things. But the technologies, and that was your question, the technologies have found their way into other defense programs. And because we were competing hard, we were trying to invent a number of new ways of doing things. And that was embodied in the engineers that were doing the work, and that capability found its way into things. So both from a management development and a technical development, that program was a big win for us in terms of our future capabilities, even though we lost the competition.
All right, so there's competition out there. You've got Airbus, you've got emerging competition from China, Canada, Russia, elsewhere. How do you see the competition shaping up, and how will you keep your competitive edge?
Well, I see, my personal view is that over time, I don't know who else will join the commercial, the top tier commercial players, us and Airbus. But my guess is the Chinese have as good a shot at it as anybody. And so let's hypothesize that there's a third major entrant over the next 20 years. The answer, there's only one answer for us, and that is innovation. There's only one answer. To retain a generation or two advantage, you asked about the narrow body plane after the MAX. We have to do that airplane because at that point, the new entrant will be doing something like the MAX. And what the 100 years gives us, and our size and scale, gives us the ability to invest in more alternative technologies and pick and choose. We cannot give up that advantage because competing purely on price or cost will be difficult, particularly when most of the costs are coming from the developing world for your competitors. So Innovation is the only answer. And because we will eventually compete by offering something at the same price that does a lot more, has a lot more performance, and therefore impacts the profit and loss statement of our customers. And so that's the answer. There's no easy way around that.
Yeah. All right. So looking at the region, this part of the world, a large percentage of airplanes get sold here. And it seems that airlines in the Arabian Gulf region have created a successful business model.
Yes. Yes.
So utilizing their geographic position and creating hubs that connect Asia to Africa to Europe all the way to the Americas. Is this business model sustainable, and what might threaten it?
Well, the business model is obviously successful to date. I mean, the Emirates have essentially become the Hong Kong of this century, okay? The maritime century, Hong Kong served a lot of the same transit purpose, re-export, logistical hub that Emirates does now. I think that given the technology that I see available, which is the size and range of the airplanes, I think that business model is sustainable for many, many decades. It will be proven because the Europeans are going to fight back, the Indians are going to try to compete, and the Asians will try to figure out a way to fly over you. So, but I think until there's a huge step function in either range or capacity beyond what I can see today, I think this purpose will continue to be very, very competitive here. And I think there's more market share that is available in Europe and America as this region competes with legacy carriers. It's you're putting a lot of pressure on them.
What does the future hold for the aerospace industry? What are we expecting in terms of innovation that might benefit airlines and air travelers?
Well, I think there'll be another 20 or 30 years of these new materials, lighter, stronger materials, that will be harvested and spiraled into a lot of systems, particularly on the commercial side, where efficiency is rewarded. On the military side, it's more performance, less efficiency, more performance. But so I think there'll be 20, 30 years of, and then there will be new materials after that. But the theme will be able to withstand heat, lighter, stronger, and more consumer electronics. That's another big theme, more consumer electronics. So, and there, supersonic over the next couple of decades, I think will come back.
Are we expecting something from Boeing?
I think so. I think so. It's the last time the Concorde, it just cost too much for a ticket, to pay for the cost of the airplane. I think technology advancement will allow that capability to be offered much more cheaply.
Space travel?
Yeah, I will see some space travel, but also
we've got the space, the capsule out there.
Yes, we've got our own out there for everybody to look at and climb in. But I think the other trend will be in use of data communications and networks. I think in the military side, everything will be tied together. There'll be from satellites to airplanes to people on the ground to horizontal engagement on the ground. Everything will be tied together. So the revolution in communication and data management will probably be the biggest innovation on the military side.
All right. Sorry, Steve, one question and then it's Q&A to the floor. So, Jim, one day you might find a successor to take lead of the company. Maybe the board is doing that and they're not even telling you. But you might be thinking of retirement. You might be looking for a new job. as long as the heart is still beating, where do you see yourself next?
You know, it's very hard to say. I mean, right now I'm focused on one thing, which is running Boeing. It is undeniable that I am 65 years old, so at some point someone's going to get the idea I've been doing this a little longer than I should. But so the simple way to answer it is I enjoy my job. I'm spending a lot of time developing the generation behind me so that when the board decides to make a move, that we'll be ready to go. And what I do after that, I don't have the faintest idea. I really don't. I haven't given it much thought. But it will be something. I will not sit around, I guarantee you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Great. Thank you, Jim, for that. So please, Q&A from the floor. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jim. Marhaba, Mohammed.
Yes.
Hi. My name is Sana Bagarsh. I'm
Sana,
CEO of a company called Brand Moxie and founder of an innovation initiative called Tamakkan. I lived in Seattle and I worked with one of your integrators, Jim, so I know the kind of innovation that Boeing espouses. My question is, a lot of the companies, a lot of the large companies, and especially those based out of the West Coast, are into innovation at a grassroots level. So this is like the internal operational and systemic changes that happen within your staffing. You know, we have Lockheed Martin does Skunk Works, and there are various bootstrapping initiatives in various companies. And I wanted to know what Boeing did specifically in that regard.
Well, I think I mentioned in general terms, trying to maintain the bottom-up energy on innovation. But we have many organizational structures. The Phantom Works, for example, that is an incubator of innovation for the defense and space side of our business. But the big thing is to hold on to a culture that gives you more ideas than you can handle. And that gets down to how you pay, promote, and mentor people. And there's no shortcut to that challenge. That's one conference room at a time. That's walking the talk as a leader. And that's taking people who have had failures, learning from it, moving them on to something else. If they fail there, learning from it again. Because every time you fail, the odds of succeeding the next time are higher. And so holding on to that culture and the way you handle people is the ultimate answer.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Liwa Abu Khait. I work for Brandster, social media technology company. I would like your insights and your advice for the youth generation, entrepreneurs in UAE, on what sectors of economy they should focus their innovation on.
This is broadly speaking. Look, it's hard to argue with data, communications, that whole area, and biomedical are. If I were a broadly educated entrepreneur, I would probably, on a top-down basis, look at those places where the balance between risk and reward is it's never stacked in your favor as an entrepreneur, but where the odds are a little better because there are established markets for these things. But innovators don't think like that. They don't think top down. They just get excited about an idea and they go for it. And so what I would tell those people is to learn a little bit about customers and markets before you go all in. Innovations for innovation's sake is great, but innovation for customer benefit is even better.
I mean, Jim, from your position, you see things maybe many of us don't see.
Yeah.
What is, maybe on trends, what can you share with us?
Well, it's I can talk about my world, but I talked a little bit last night about I see a slow growth economy when you add up the world in total. And so I would focus as much on the productivity of my customers as I would on new to the world performance for customers. I mean, the 787 is ultimately a productivity aid. The 787 is 22% better fuel mileage than the airplanes it replaces. It has a more comfortable environment for passengers. It has 30% less maintenance cost. So all this innovation went into helping airlines deal with high fuel prices. And so the 787 is one of the most exciting innovations around, but its focus was productivity. It was not new to the world capability. It wasn't a supersonic airplane.
Yes.
We could have taken the same technologies and made a supersonic airplane that didn't fly as farther but flew faster and more exciting. But we knew the problem in a slow growth world, in an unstable regional environment. We knew the challenge was productivity. So I would just encourage people to think about the productivity of their customers as well as new to the world performance.
Can we ask for 5 more minutes? That's it? One more question?
Yeah.
The gentleman here, apologies. I mean, we could go on, Jim. There's a lot to
I understand.
But please, go ahead, sir.
Hassan Zainuddin, I'm sorry. Hassan Zainuddin, American University in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's hard to speak about innovation without talking about engagement and impact. And since we are in the region here, we are in Abu Dhabi and UAE, I'd like to know what kind of engagement model and impact Boeing has on the region, specifically on the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and
Sure.
the region. Please.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that multi-level engagement is critical. I mean, we have to be meaningful. Our objective is to establish a company-to-country relationship that is broad-based and meaningful for both sides, based on mutual benefit. But it's not any one thing, it's everything. It's collaboration with universities, it's research centers, it's placing manufacturing here, it's bringing our technical know-how here to train people in new factories, it's having mentoring and intern opportunities for people from the region into our factories back in the United States. It's everything. And I think those are always the best. They're the hardest to manage, but they have the most glue between a company and a country. So it's not one thing, it's everything.
Sure, Jim. Well, Jim, thank you again very much.
You're very
for
welcome.
This. Thank you all for being
thank
with
you.
us. Thank you.